What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, host of the How To Show, where we talk about optimizing life, money, and happiness, one how-to at a time. This week on the show, I am bringing a guest on, and this episode is about 2 months in the making. I have been trying to get Mr. Cody Berman on the show for a little while to share his story of the types of things that he's been able to do at a really young age that has ultimately allowed him to retire from traditional means of employment in his early 20s. And so there are a ton of nuggets of wisdom in different sorts of tactics and basically thought-provoking ideas packed inside this interview that I wanted to share with you guys because I know Cody's story from listening to it on a couple of other platforms, and I knew that he was somebody that I wanted to interview, and so I feel really thankful that I got the opportunity to do that and that I can share it with you. And if you listen all the way to the end, Cody makes a challenge to anybody who's listening to this episode that you need to contact Cody, and he'll show you how to do that at the end of the show. And so without further ado, let's bring on Cody. Cody Berman, welcome to the How To Show.
Thanks for having me, man. This has, been a long time coming. We had a couple of hiccups with the recording stuff, but now we're here. I'm really excited to join you.
Yeah, since I tried to get you on the show, from the best I can tell, you're into a new investment property, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on in the episode. But I wanted to have you on because you have a story that I think is really cool, a story that I got to hear as a benefit of listening to a different show. And I wanted to share this story of yours with folks who I think can gain some benefit from it, especially those who are maybe in the college age or just thinking about ways that you can do life a little differently than maybe the traditional path that you might be told about or fed. And so talk to me a little bit about the types of things that you're doing these days and how you got to that point as it relates back to when you were maybe in college.
Yeah, I guess I'll take you back to the beginning. So back when I was 19, my mom handed me The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And she said, here, Cody, check out this book. Like, it transformed the way I thought about money and stuff. And just check it out. I was 19, don't have a lot of money. I'm not making a lot of money, but she's like, just give it a read, see what you think. And it blew my mind. And the thing that blew my mind was that I learned that you didn't have to always trade your time for money on a linear basis. You could instead build up these businesses or buy these assets, whether it be real estate or stocks, whatever. And these things could pay you in perpetuity. You put the time in up front in the beginning, and then, these things kind of pay you down the road and allow you to retire super early, which is crazy. It was such a revolutionary idea. Nothing that I haven't learned anything since, like even going to school for finance and economics in college. This is after I read it, never learned anything like that. Definitely didn't learn that in high school. And so this was just like a revolutionary concept I took and ran with. And so I founded a disc golf company back when I was 19. A couple of years later, I had some failed businesses in between, tried to start a clothing line. That didn't work out. Tried to start a tutoring company. That didn't work out. So it's not all successes. Just want to preface that. It's not all roses and rainbows in the entrepreneurial world. Ended up creating a blog and a podcast and then some side hustle courses, some personal finance events, the Financial Freedom Summit. Started really recently getting into real estate. Just got a new part-time job, I guess, as a content consultant for a big website. So I'm kind of all over the map now at this point in my life. We can just jump in anywhere you want, Anthony.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating because, we originally talked about how we were going to structure this show as how to retire in your 20s. And, on a dollars and cents basis, that might be the reality, but it sounds like you're anything but retired. You're doing all sorts of different things. And so if you don't mind, let's take a step back into some of those earlier situations that got you on the trajectory that you are right now. In order for somebody to claim that they are retired in their 20s, there's got to be some streams. I think I've heard it said this way before. In order to reach, perpetuity and income, maybe you've got to have 5, 6, 7 different income streams. And it sounds like you're well on your way. So how did those really get started?
It's honestly just kind of the try, fail, try again until something works. Like you're not going to, people who are listening, I really encourage you to start a business or, go after that thing that you're scared of, but it's not going to be a home run every time. Like you're going to fail and you just have to kind of get used to it. And that was something that I was lucky to kind of get used to early on, just failing, getting no rejection, whether it's applying to jobs or applying to scholarships, which was before college. And, you get a ton of rejections, but the few yeses that you get, that can really help you down the road. It's the same thing with everything, but for some reason, people are so scared of failure. And I think it might be the culture, at least in America. I don't know. I can't speak to other countries, but like everybody gets a trophy, like you can't fail or you can't lose type of thing. I think that's kind of set a negative mindset for a lot of people where they're just so terrified to not win or, to fail and not get that trophy at the end of whatever they're trying to do. So a lot of people never step out of that comfort zone. And I think that's what's allowed me to at least, try my hand into all the things I just mentioned before.
Yeah, I think that's real fascinating. And if we specifically talk about it in the sense of, early on in your college years, I can just remember those times in my own life where there were people that were vying for these minimum wage jobs on campus, and everybody wanted these same positions. And very few people were thinking to the level that you were. I don't have to sit and find one of these menial jobs. I can go and create value and use something that I've known about or learned in the past to create a business for myself. And it sounds like the first one to really jump off the ground was in disc golf. If you would, talk to me a little bit more about how that happened and what ultimately got you to the point where this is something that's making me money. This is something that I've thrown a lot of time into and it's starting to show reward.
Yeah, so I'd been playing the sport since I was 8 years old. My uncle actually owned a disc golf course. So I was familiar with the sport, and I just saw a gap. Like, all the market leaders had these old janky websites. It was run by old folks, and I was like, you know what? Like, they need some fresh guys in the mix. So me was as the finance and marketing head, my buddy Jim, who is the CAD engineer, because I don't know how to design a disc. Like, I have no idea how to do that. We ended up teaming up, and I think the initial conversation was maybe summer of 2015. We didn't have even a prototype in hand until almost a year later. Like, this was a slog trying to figure out all the systems, getting all the manufacturing partners, like getting all the prototypes, the plastics. It is a lot more than I anticipated, but I learned so much. Like, I learned, like I just mentioned, marketing, how to build a website, how to network, how to appeal to different audiences, how to price a product, like all these skills that now I use in all my different businesses that have been so valuable to me. But I guess more on a more tactical level. So yeah, we start getting prototypes. He's designing these things in CAD files, which is computer aided design, I believe. I'm not an engineer, but for those of you who are engineers, hopefully I got that right. After about a year, we started to actually get some discs. So we actually jumped from partner to partner to partner. We actually went to 3 different manufacturing sites. I mean, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. Sure. Finally found one we liked, started manufacturing discs, and we actually launched a Kickstarter campaign for when the discs were first ready to go. Raised $10,000 from kind of bootstrapping. We would just go in like every local Facebook group for disc golfers and say, hey, we're this new company, Arsenal Discs. You guys want to check us out? Give us a chance. Make this pledge. We'll give them a really good deal on the discs. Sold about $10,000 worth of them. And then, those next couple of years, I mean, it wasn't like retire, I'm buying a yacht money, but it was like a pretty decent amount of side hustle money, especially as a college student, like making a couple $100s a month, high hundreds, like the best month ever would maybe be like 1,000. But that was a good chunk of money. And just knowing that, like you just said, Anthony, like I didn't have to go work in the cafeteria. This is a business that, right. I already built it up. I got the systems in place. It was pretty hands off once I got it to that point. And yes, it was, painful, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours going into actually building that business. But now I kind of have this little machine that's making money for me while I sleep, which is really cool.
Absolutely. I think there's an importance in the story that you just told, that the instant gratification model is not part of the story you told. There was a year worth of time where you were putting hours in, not getting dollars back out. And it sounds to me like now the story is more in the sense of you are getting dollars out with fewer hours put back in. And I think that's something that's worth mentioning a second time, just because of the value and the fact that you had to really hustle in it. And it's, everybody's an overnight success except for the people that spent 20 years getting there. That's the great mantra of it. And so that's really cool that you were able to get that off the ground. It sounds like that whole process happened while you were in college. And so it's not for a lack of your education in any means. You were still going through your classes, right? And so this was an evening moonlighting scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, the beginning days, like I had probably 1,000 discs and boxes in my college house basement. There's 8 guys living in there. Like, it's an absolute pigsty, and I'm like shipping out discs. Like, it was just, I mean, it was like, if people saw the back end operation of our business, they would have laughed and never ordered again. But like, we made it work. I was a college student just hustling, trying to make ends meet and bring in some side hustle income, and it's still rocking to this day.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to share your story, because I've done a series on how to pay for college. You know, a lot of it focuses on optimizing your student debt, your scholarships, your tuition, but more of it probably should have focused on that side hustle ability. And because the opportunity to scale that to get to a position where I would imagine toward the end of that, you probably weren't too worried about what college cost because you had money coming in, whereas most college students don't find themselves in that position.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And another thing I just want to bring up before we, move on to something else is I think networking is honestly like one of the most valuable skills that people don't learn in college. Mm-hmm. And I actually was really lucky to have a mentor who challenged me. And this is when I was like grinding. This is when I wanted to get a commercial or corporate banking job, maybe even investment banking. And my goal was I'm going to work for like 5 or 7 real hard years. You make a ton of money in those jobs, and then I'm just going to retire and do whatever I want, basically. I ended up not going that route, and I'm sure we're going to touch on that, Anthony. But in that process, he's like, all right, my challenge, just reach out to 3 people on LinkedIn every single day, like in some job that you're interested in, at some company you're interested in. Most of them are not going to answer, and it stings. Like if you're reaching out to some guy, some girl, and you think they're really cool, they're doing really awesome stuff, and they don't answer you, like it hurts. And the first couple of times I was discouraged because I'd reach out to these people, obviously the first people on my list were like the coolest people, like a couple of years ahead of me. They're crushing it whenever role they're in, and they just don't answer. But the one person that does answer in those 20 LinkedIn messages are, translate this into anything in your life: scholarship applications, job applications, taking risks with business. That one thing that does hit, or that one connection you do make, can absolutely transform your life. And that's something I've carried with me, throughout college and now into my, young entrepreneurship journey. And I think that's allowed me to kind of like get a leg up on the competition, just not being afraid to take those chances. Cause that one bucket that goes in might, win the game for you.
I love it. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. I've experienced some of that in my personal life, my professional life, and he's absolutely right. And so from that point of view, it sounds like you graduated from college, and I don't believe you went and got that job in investment banking. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not investment banking. I did actually. So I took an internship my junior year doing commercial real estate lending at a bank. A little more lenient in terms of hours than investment banking, which is like you're working 90 hours a week and you're making a ton of money, but you have no life. This was more, I was actually getting paid overtime if I went over 40 hours, which is just like unheard of in banking. So I took that job, ended up returning to that job after I graduated and took a little hiatus in Australia for 5 months. But you're right. You're partially right, Anthony. I didn't last in that job. I lasted about 7 months. And then actually I met Grant Sabatier, kind of another, just crazy thing, reaching out to a bunch of people in the space, and we hit it off. And then, went on a book tour, and it's been a crazy journey since then.
A book tour. What are we talking about now? When did you find time to write a book? Okay. We gotta dive into that a minute.
So it's not my book. So I met Grant Sabatier. He's the founder of Millennial Money. And just because I was like such a nerd in this space, I knew all the big names in the financial independence, personal finance space. Grant was a guy who would, he had nothing at 24, grinded his butt off for 5 years, retired, or, quote unquote, hit fire, retired from the job he didn't like. Actually, that's probably a better way to phrase it, at 30, with like a 1.25 million, I think he had saved up at that point. So I knew this guy. He had an awesome story. I saw him at FinCon, which is a financial conference for those of you who don't know, for content creators like us who are making content, whether it's YouTube or podcasting or blogging in the personal finance space. I see him at the final event, which is like this dinner, basically drinking party, dance party thing. We're both actually kind of drunk, which is funny too. I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, what's going on, Grant? Like, I'm Cody, tell him my whole spiel and story. He's like, oh man, we end up talking for 2 hours. Like, we just hit it off. It was awesome. I hit him up the next day and he didn't answer. And I'm like, hey, like, what's up, Grant? I just want to learn from you. Like, you're such a big person in this space. I'm sure, like, I'll literally work for you for free. Just like, I want to learn what you're doing, how you did it. Cause at that time, I was trying to blow my blog and podcast up. That's why I went to FinCon. Doesn't answer. I hit him up like a week later. He doesn't answer. And so, a lot of people might get discouraged and just give up after that. Another 2 weeks go by. I hit him up again. So this is like 3 weeks after that first email. He finally answers. He's like, oh, yo, sorry, man. my email gets so bogged down. You know, I have all these affiliate partners and spam and all this crap. He's like, sorry, I didn't see it, but I'm actually going to be starting this book tour. He just wrote this book called Financial Freedom. I need someone to help me, coordinate it. I'm like, okay, cool. Just tell me what to do. He's like, well, these are the cities I want to hit. Just, start booking stuff in those cities. So, 700, 800 emails later, I had booked like a ton of events around the entire country. We ended up doing 82 of them. But at this point, I had no idea that my involvement would have anything more than, creating a schedule on an Excel sheet. And then in October of or maybe it was either October or November 2018, Grant's like, dude, do you want to come on the tour with me? And I was like, you serious? Like, I was working the banking job. I was kind of hating it at that point because I was doing the podcast and interviewing all these rock star people, hitting financial independence, doing cool stuff. And I'm like, I'm like commuting over an hour each way. My boss is kind of a dick. Everyone I work with is miserable. Like, I don't like this. This sucks. I don't have to, like my original plan, Anthony, was grind it out for 7 years, save a ton of money, and then retire. I was like, I don't need to do this. I can find a better path. I already, kind of had a taste of this in my early college years with side hustling. It just wasn't enough money to actually live on and really invest and save. So yeah, end up quitting that corporate banking job in January. Well, actually last day of January in 2019. So 2 months after Grant said, hey, you want to come with me? Went on the book tour around the country from March to June of 2018. And yeah, the rest is history. Now we're good friends. He actually just hooked me up with my newest side hustle we can talk about later. But that was just the thing. It was like I connected with probably 50 different people at FinCon, similar spiel, similar story, all people who are, bigger than me, more successful than me in the space, asking them to partner or do something. And it was that one interaction with Grant that just launched me on this beeline to opportunities.
Yeah, that is a fantastic way to summarize the skills that you have learned at quite frankly, a young age to be able to, number one, have the courage to walk up to somebody, introduce themselves, and have a discussion with them. I think that's probably the most underrated ability in all of networking, possibly all of business. And so I commend you for being able to do that. But you took it a step farther and you found somebody that you admired and you proposed a value proposition to them. And that's awful grammar, but we'll go with it in the sense that you said to them, I will do something for you for probably free. Yeah, exactly. And in return, I just want to be in the same airspace as you because I know that it'll make me better if I can do that. And so you took the chance on that and it worked. And, it sounded like you did that 50 times in order for it to hit really strongly once. And so I just think that the emphasis of the types of things we're talking about in this episode is that it takes several opportunities worth of trying to find one opportunity that's really going to get you onto that next thing, that bigger thing. And that's really fun. I'm excited to get to share this content with, not only myself selfishly, but with others that are hopefully able to take something away from it. And so if we keep talking about this episode in the sphere of being able to potentially retire in your 20s, it sounds like there are some other things that happened that started to shore up what those income streams look like. And so where do we want to go next? What's next in the Cody story?
I think something that we should kind of maybe hop back, at least in my mindset anyway, and this is for anyone in their teens, 20s, or even if you're just starting your journey later. The pin of all this, like if I pulled this thing out, if this was the pin, everything would collapse, is frugality. Like you have to be able to save money, to take opportunities, to start businesses. Like if you are paycheck to paycheck or worse, getting into debt every month, throwing it on a credit card, you are not, and I would advise against taking any opportunity that involves like, monetary consequence. That would be a huge no-no. The reason why I was able to do all this stuff is because I was living like a college kid. I was spending like $1,000 a month all in, like housing, food, like everything. And so at like making $1,000 a month with side hustling isn't that hard. But if you're spending $6,000 a month and you're trying to, get your side hustles built up to take over your main job, that's a lot harder. Getting from 0 to 6,000 is a lot harder from getting from 0 to 1,000. So frugality just freed up so much space for me to try new things, not be afraid of what the future holds. When I actually quit my corporate banking job, I was saving my butt off. I had saved like 35, 40,000 and I was spending $1,000 a month. And I was like, whoa, like if I think of money in terms of time, I just bought myself 35 or 40 months of entrepreneurial freedom where I could make $0 and still be fine. So like that was a revolutionary kind of mind twist that I had that, okay, like I actually bought freedom in terms of like time units. This isn't just like a chunk of arbitrary money I have saved up. And that's what helped me take all these risks and, do what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to look at that when you start to think about what your life costs. And I've done videos to the same extent of budgeting and making sure that you know what your numbers are. And so that when you find an opportunity that happened in your life that I can't pass this up, I need to do it. And in order to do it, I probably need to quit my job. The foresight was already in place that you had a windfall to come back on of money that you had already saved already. And to that point, I think living like a college student is probably one of the more underrated realities that most 20-somethings should have an opportunity to find themselves in, but maybe don't for one reason or another. Just the thought process isn't always there. And so I'm right there with you in terms of living like a college student so that you can make opportunities that make sense to you. So when you've got that opportunity to go on that book tour wraps up, you've got your podcast going. I'm going to definitely link to that in the show notes. You started, I believe, did it start as the Phi Show? I know it as the Phi Show now. I'm a big fan. So talk to me about how that happened.
Yeah, that started as the Phi Show. I started my blog a little bit before that, which was Fly to Phi, which is basically trying to teach people how you can hit financial independence like at lightning speed. Then the Phi Show came a couple months after. I love the podcast medium. I feel like you get a lot more. You can hear people's tones. You get to hear different people's stories. I mean, blogs are awesome, especially for like instructional type stuff. But I just like the podcast format better. So the Phi Show actually teamed up with this guy TJ, who only lasted for 10 episodes because it was just a little too much with his job and his family and stuff. Love the guy. It just didn't quite work out. And then I've been podcasting with Justin Taylor from Saving Sherpa ever since, back in late 2018. So it's almost 2.5 years since we first launched the podcast. And it's been an awesome journey. Met so many cool people. It's an awesome networking tool. Make a little bit of money as well, which is never bad. But I mean, the networking, again, going back to networking, is like the coolest part of the podcast. We've met so many people and talked to so many people we never would have a chance to have a conversation with if we didn't have the podcast platform to invite them on and share their story.
Completely agree. The only way I was able to connect with you is that same sort of medium. And so that networking continues to pay dividends in all the different directions. So if we've got living frugally, and then we stack on top of that, we've got a business from college. We've got a book tour that we've participated in. We've got the monetization of a podcast show, probably the monetization of a blog. How many more steps does it take until Cody's expenses are covered and we're in a good spot? What's missing? Is that enough to get there? Do we have to do one more thing?
We're going to do a couple more things. So at this point, with the things you just mentioned, I'm probably like making 1.5 to 2 times my monthly expenses, which are still like egregiously low. Like I'm spending like $1,200 to $1,500 a month at this point, which is like, leveling up from the $1,000 a month I was doing before. 2019 summer. So this is actually at the end of the book tour. This is another thing, reached out to Julie Berninger of Fire Drill Podcast. She's since paused the podcast, but check out some of her episodes. She has a lot of good stuff. She was one of the bigger podcasts in the fire space. Like when Choose Fi first came out, like there was a couple fire podcasts. She was in the top 3 for sure. And like, I just knew she had a go-getter, like, type A mentality. And so I hit her up, same style as Grant. I'm like, hey, Julie, like you seem like the type of person I want to associate myself with. I think we're very similar. Let's do something together. And nothing really came to fruition for a couple of months, but it was while I was on the book tour, actually, she hit me up and she's like, let's build some side hustle courses. I had experience blogging and making money. We didn't talk about this, but I was freelancing, doing a good bit of freelancing at the time, building some websites, doing copy editing, email stuff, like a bunch of random stuff, just learning how to make money online. And then she had been selling printables on Etsy. So we ended up launching these 3 side hustle courses in the middle of 2019. The freelance one didn't really go anywhere, unfortunately, even though that was like my bread and butter. I think it was too broad. The blogging one, we kept going for probably like 7 months, but the printables one just took off. It was 80% of the people gravitated towards that. I quickly like pivoted and started learning everything I could about printables, created my own printable shop. Since I've made thousands and thousands within my printable shop. So I was like, I wasn't just like learning along with the crowd. I was like an actual figurehead. And we still run that to this day. So that was kind of the next big step in side hustle income, is those 3 side hustle courses. And that just allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable about, leaving the job. And it was a grind, man. Like the thing about courses is if you market it well, yes, you can make a good money, but If not, you're spending hundreds of hours, like literally hundreds of hours. And if 5 people buy the course, like you're making you're making 5 cents an hour on your
Right.
time. Like, but the cool thing is just the scale. Like with a digital product, you could sell to one person or you could sell to 10,000 people. It's no additional overhead. It's just you get paid a lot more with 10,000. So that was kind of the next step in my journey, the next little side hustle-y type thing that I tried. And oh man, I learned so much in that. And failed too. Like the freelance thing was a flop. And I spent over 100 hours building that course. It sucked, but
Yeah, and I think that that's still important to talk about that in the sense that because you had a lifestyle where your expenses were low, you had the ability to go and try new things. And if it worked out, fantastic. You just continue to roll it into your snowball. And if it didn't work out, you learn something that's going to be of value to you in the next thing that you do. There is no losing in this story. There's you learning and there's you succeeding, and that's it. And I think that that's really a strong position to be in. That again all ties back to that theory of frugality and making sure that your 4 walls are covered, your roof over your head, your food, your transportation, what your core needs are met, and you're able to make choices to fit your lifestyle based on the things that you want to go and pursue. And so being able to do that, I commend the fact that you've been able to figure that out at again a relatively young age. And so when you've got that course rolling, you've got the printables rolling, you've got the things we've already talked about. Is there anything else that's really progressing you to that point where you've got enough streams of income that are coming in where realistically that corporate banking job never has to come into your thought process again?
yeah, I mean, at that point, corporate banking job never had to come into my thought process again. But I mean, I'm always hungry to learn new things, try new things. So my journey didn't stop there. Actually, with Grant, the guy I went on the book tour with, we ended up launching what's called the Financial Freedom Summit, which was supposed to be an in-person event. We had over 1,000 people signed up to go to St. Louis in May of 2020. Getting all my years mixed up since we're so close to New Year's here. May of 2020, but COVID had other plans. Ended up rescheduling to September of 2020. COVID had other plans. So that ended up being a virtual event, but that was still something that we spent a lot of time building that whole thing out, getting a bunch of awesome speakers lined up and just amazing content, and so many people signed up, and that was a really fun thing. I made a little bit of money along the way. The most recent thing is the real estate stuff. I've just had so many people like on the Fi Show, my podcast, that I've interviewed, and anyone who's in their 20s and is just like retired and crushing it, real estate, like every single time. And I was actually just talking to my buddy Craig and his co-host Ziana from the Fi team. Both of them are just like crushing it with real estate. My good friends James and Emily Lowry, who retired at 27, 28, real estate. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like everyone else is crushing real estate. Let little Cody get a turn. So, yeah, I started just hitting it hard. I got like all my team set up, and by team, I mean, I found a realtor that I trusted. It was actually a childhood friend of mine who's a realtor now. Started, getting the pre-approval stuff, getting all my income stuff together for the lenders, started, getting handymen and people that I could trust, and then started just looking for properties, just scouring the MLS every day. I had an automated email that would come in my inbox. Actually, the first one I went under contract for this year, we're about to close in like 2 weeks, have the inspector come through, and the listing agent told us there was no knob and tube wiring, which for those of you who know what that is, it's like kind of a fire hazard, and a lot of older homes have it, and the whole house is knob and tube. So it would have cost like $50,000 to rewire the whole house. Ended up pulling out of that deal. Got a really awesome cash flowing deal down in central Connecticut. Shortly after that one, we picked up another house that was 0.2 miles down the street from a distressed seller. And as you alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, Anthony, now I'm in my third property this year, up in central Massachusetts, where I'm originally from. So it's been a wild ride, and a lot of bad stuff and good stuff has happened, but learned a ton. Kind of the theme of my story. Bad stuff happens, good stuff happens, but it's learning experiences and successes, as you said it so beautifully.
That's right. And so this is fantastic and a good way to pivot. I've done a couple of different shows with different real estate aspects to it, but ultimately, the how-to show is about how to optimize life, money, and happiness. And I really feel like you've done that in such a way that you've been able to touch on each one of those things by really intertwining them in such a way that you've got your life figured out, because you're able to go and do things that you want to do at this point, because you've figured out how to create income streams that cover your basic needs. And so from that point of view, you can go and find pursuits to grow your money And I'm sure happiness comes along the way. It sounds like you're a young guy. You probably got, aspirations to do more things and to experience the world. And you're setting yourself up so that you can do that really well. And again, I just wanted to get your story out in front of what limited audience I do have, but the how-to faithful will definitely eat this up. And so I appreciate you breaking down some of the things you've done so far. And tell me, is there anything that's on the docket for you? What's next in terms of this? Is it just continuing to grow? Is there one thing that you're really dying to get after in 2021?
Real estate's been my kick lately. I got to say, that's what my sweet tooth has been, real estate. I think I'm going to maybe get into some flipping and hopefully some bigger and better deals in 2021. I'm not sure. I try not to set like too crazy. I like having guidelines, but I don't like having crazy goals and, getting upset if I don't hit them. I just kind of take opportunities in stride. Like if I can do something, I have the time or the money, whatever the hindrance might be, and I can do it and it's something that interests me. Now I'm at the point where I can say no if I don't want to, or I can say yes if it seems like an awesome opportunity, like you just said. And that is just like the most crazy freeing thing. Something we actually haven't talked about is my most recent side hustle. So Grant, the guy I've been talking about this whole podcast, got to give him huge shout outs because he just really helped me take it to the next level and opened my eyes to possibilities of combining frugality with entrepreneurship. But he just recently sold his website, Millennial Money, to the Motley Fool. And so they were looking to hire a lead content strategist for the website, like someone who has SEO knowledge, someone who knows Grant, who knows the site. And Grant's like, I could think of nobody better. And so he hooked me up with that gig. They're paying me really well. It's a part-time role, but like I'm learning a lot. I'm loving it. It's a lot of like strategy thinking and keyword research, which I enjoy doing. So not slowing down anytime soon, Anthony. I'm just gonna keep, like I said, picking up opportunities as they come to me, and while I have the time and energy.
Yeah, and I think there's one final thought that I could take from what you just said is that you've got the ability, based on what you've done so far, to say no to things. And so what that really means is that you get to say yes to the things you want to. And so that's a position of power that I just wish everybody could be in. And maybe as a token of listening to this episode, somebody can take something actionable in their own lives, because what you've done, while it's probably at the top tier level of how quickly somebody can do it, I haven't heard anything in your story that isn't replicable with some hard work, some dedication, and some willingness to bootstrap life, and ultimately get to where you need to be.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's some people are like, oh, you're lucky. You got lucky with that. And sure, that's fine. But like my luck only comes because preparation met opportunity. Like that, that saying, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. It's so true. Like, yes, you can get lucky, but you get lucky firing out 50 different shots and hoping one hits. You don't get lucky. You get lucky if you fire out one shot and it hits every time. Then you're just super lucky, and kudos to you. But that's not my story at all. Like if Grant was the only person I hit up and then, we just had this bond and went on a book tour, that's lucky. If I started one side hustle and I became a billionaire, that's lucky. But like, I'm just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. So that's been my style. It's going to continue to be my style because I think that's the best way to learn and, just get ahead.
I love it. So thanks for sharing your story with me, Cody. If you got a little bit more time, I've got some rapid fire questions I'm going to throw at you, most likely known as the how-to cues. Are you up for the challenge?
Oh, I'm so up for it. Let's do it.
All right. First question I've got for you. What time did you wake up this morning?
6:30.
That's earlier than most, especially for anybody that's watching this later on. We recorded this early in the holiday season of 2020. And so getting up at 6:30, that's good stuff right there. All right. Question number 2. What is one podcast that you subscribe to that is not your own that gives you value?
Sam Harris's Making Sense podcast is such a thinker. I love just listening to him talk and flesh out ideas. Like that guy is just so smart and gifted with words and great interviewer.
All right. What is one app on your phone that you could not live without?
Reminders.
Okay, there we go. I like it. Here, we're going to go deep right now. What color is your toothbrush?
Blue.
Everybody knows this. I'm just waiting for somebody to not know it. I'm proud of all my guests so far. And the final question I've got for you, where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can check out my podcast, The Fi Show, if you're liking, the audio waves, if this is your preferred style of learning. I also have the blog, Fly to Fi, which has links to all those courses I mentioned. It has links to the Financial Freedom Summit. I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah. Hit me up. Please. I challenge. That's my challenge. Someone hit me up, because I always say, like, contact me. if you're interested, have any questions. And nobody actually takes me up on it, but like seriously, like what do you have to lose? I'm not going to bite. I can hopefully answer your question or at least give you a little motivation. Like I'm a real person. So please hit me up. Like I'm sure you'll link to stuff in the show notes here, Anthony. And that's my challenge.
Yeah, I'm gonna link to everything you said in the show notes, and I can't let my audience let me down right now. And I know my audience is like my 6 best friends and my mom or whatnot. But so hopefully somebody listens to this episode and they connect with you, Cody, because you've got a wealth of knowledge that you've generated in a short amount of time. And that's what makes the world go around, the laws of abundance, that if you're willing to share something that you know with somebody else who continues it on and on and on, I think that there's no end to the benefit that can happen from that. So from that point of view, I thank you for your willingness to connect with people.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure.
All right. This has been a fantastic episode. I appreciate how you being with me here, Cody. I'll go ahead and let you go now.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. A special thanks to Cody Berman for joining me on the show. That was really fun, and I appreciate him being able to tell his story to hopefully a new audience and still get benefit from the fact that he did things that are replicable. If you can take one piece of this episode and apply it to your own life, I think you'll be better off for it. And so I encourage you to do so, and whatever that might look like for you. So that's going to bring this episode of the show to a close. As always, I appreciate the interaction that I have with you each and every week. If this is a video that you got value from or you think somebody else might get value from, go ahead and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm to let people know that. And if you've got somebody specific in mind that you think that you should share this video with, I implore you to do it and would really appreciate that. And if you've got any feedback for the show or any feedback for Cody, leave me a comment, let me know that. I'll make sure to get that dialogue going. And if you've got any ideas for future topics on the show, please share those as well. And as always, if you prefer or might be interested in listening to the show via podcast, you can check that out at the podcast player of your choice on all of them, Anthony Drew Gary or The How To Show. You can search either one, you'll find me and the episode that we've created for this week and past weeks. So go ahead and check that out. Until next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.